The man in seat 14, row H, section C, was wearing a brown sport coat over a white shirt. No tie. He had driven across town that afternoon with two friends, not to fight anyone, not to make a statement, just to watch. He had a lot of time to watch things those days. It was March 1969. Muhammad Ali had not fought professionally in almost 2 years. His boxing license had been revoked in every state in the country. His passport was sitting in a government office somewhere. He was 27 years old and legally barred from doing the one thing he had spent his entire life learning to do. Because 2 years earlier, at an Army induction center in the same city, he had stepped back when his name was called and refused to move forward. 6 words everyone remembered. I ain't got no quarrel. What people forgot was everything that came after. The trials, the appeals, the death threats, the mail that said things not worth repeating here. He was back in Houston for legal meetings connected to his ongoing appeal. His lawyers had something scheduled for the next morning. So that Tuesday night, with nothing else to do in a city that had complicated feelings about him, Ali had come to watch a show. The show was called Night of Champions, which was a generous name for what it actually was. A touring sports entertainment event, part professional wrestling, part martial arts demonstration, the kind that moved through second-tier cities on weekends. The Houston Civic Center was about two-thirds full, maybe 2,500 people. Families with kids in the upper sections, groups of young men with beer cups near the back, a handful of serious fight types toward the front who had come specifically for the main event. The main event was Carlos Dominguez. He was billed as El Invicto, the unbeaten. 32 years old, originally from Laredo, built like he had made deliberate decisions over years to become difficult to move. 6'2", 230 pounds, with a background that combined professional wrestling with legitimate boxing training and some judo picked up during 2 years in the Army. His act was simple. He stood in the ring and offered $500 to any volunteer who could stay on their feet for 3 minutes and land one clean strike. The promoter made a point of repeating the record each night. 61 volunteers, 61 consecutive nights. Nobody had collected, not once. Dominguez was good at the performance side of it. He had learned showmanship from actual wrestlers, men who understood how to keep a room moving through that range between amusement and agitation. He worked 3 or 4 volunteers a night, dispatched them without visible effort, made remarks from the microphone that were mean enough to be interesting, but not mean enough to cause real problems. It was a functioning business, and he had no reason to think tonight would be different. He was in the middle of his third volunteer, a heavy-set local man who had stopped having fun about 40 seconds in when someone in Section C made a mistake. Or maybe a deliberate choice. Hard to know. The man 2 rows behind Ali leaned forward and said, loud enough to carry, "That's Muhammad Ali, right there." A few heads turned, then a few more. The word moved through the crowd the way it does, row by row, section by section, until it reached the wrong ears. Dominguez held up a hand to pause the action, took the microphone back from the announcer, and turned towards Section C. "Ladies and gentlemen," he let the room settle, "I'm hearing we have somebody special here tonight, the former heavyweight champion of the world, Muhammad Ali." The room split immediately. Half of them cheered. A decent number booed. Some craned their necks. A few of the people near Ali shifted slightly in their seats in a way that was hard to read. Something between solidarity and discomfort. Muhammad Ali, the man who had the heavyweight title and decided to give it away. No license, no fights in almost 2 years. Dominguez paused. He was good at pauses. "Let me ask you something, champ. What does a fighter do when he can't fight anymore? Come on down. Let's find out if the greatest is still the greatest." The crowd got louder. A section to the upper left started a chant that built on itself. Ali's friend sitting next to him said something quiet. Ali didn't respond right away. He sat there with his hands resting on his knees, looking toward the ring, where Dominguez was waiting with the microphone and a wide, patient smile. Then Ali stood up. He didn't scan the crowd for their reaction before he did it. He didn't compose his face into anything in particular. He just stood up, moved along the row past the knees of the people beside him, stepped into the aisle, and walked toward the ring. He was still wearing the brown sport coat. People reached out from both sides as he came down the aisle. Some cheering, some saying things he either couldn't hear or chose not to acknowledge. He didn't perform for them. He didn't slow down or speed up. He walked to the ring the way a man walks when he has made a decision and is done with the deliberating. He climbed the 4 steps to the apron, ducked through the ropes, and stood under the lights. Dominguez came forward and extended his hand with the easy confidence of someone who believed this was already going his way. He was bigger in person than he had looked from Section C. 61 volunteers, including, by his own account, 2 former military fighters and a college wrestling champion. A former boxer who hadn't seen a real ring in almost 2 years was not a complication he was losing sleep over. Ali shook his hand. The announcer moved in with the microphone. Ali looked at it for a moment, then glanced down at himself, then back at the crowd. "I'll need some room," he said. "These pants cost real money." The laugh that came out of the building was genuine, not polite, not performed. Something in the room actually changed temperature for a second. Dominguez stopped smiling. He settled into his stance and threw a testing jab, the kind that measures distance and watches for how someone reacts. Ali wasn't where the jab expected him to be. He hadn't stepped back. He had turned slightly, leaned slightly, and the punch moved through empty space where his face had been a half-second earlier. Dominguez reset, threw again. Same result. On the 3rd attempt, he went to the body, a hook aimed low where size advantage usually means something. Ali's left hand came down and met the punch at the wrist. Not hard, just with enough direction to move it wide. The crowd had stopped making noise. Dominguez looked for a clinch. That was his territory, where a wrestling background and 50 extra pounds gave him control. His arms went around Ali's upper body and started to close. Ali moved inside the grip before it could complete, and for about 3 seconds they were chest to chest while Dominguez worked out what to do next. Then Ali wasn't there anymore. No dramatic escape. He was simply out of it. 60 seconds in, and Dominguez had not made contact once. He came harder. The combinations got wider, more committed. That was the problem. A committed punch has a long window after it, where nothing is where it should be, and those windows were where Ali was living. He moved through them without apparent effort, the way you step around a door that swings open toward you. Somewhere around the 90-second mark, Dominguez loaded up a right hand he had been setting up for 30 seconds, shifting his weight, angling left, selling it with his eyes. His best punch. It had dropped people before. He threw it with everything. Ali slipped inside it. His right hand came up on the opposite side of the punch, traveled maybe 4 inches, and stopped. 1 inch from Dominguez's jaw. He held it there, not moving. 2 seconds, maybe 3. Close enough that Dominguez could sense it without being able to see it clearly. Then Ali pulled his hand back and stepped away. He was breathing normally. Dominguez was not. The building went quiet for a full second before it didn't. Then it came up all at once, the involuntary kind of noise that happens when people have been holding their breath without realizing it. People in the back sections were on their feet. The parts of the crowd that had been booing had gone silent. The chanting had stopped. Dominguez stood where he was with an expression that was hard to place, somewhere between processing and deflated. 61 wins. He knew what it felt like when an opponent was finished. He apparently also knew what it felt like to be shown a courtesy by someone who didn't have to show it. The announcer came into the ring with the microphone, visibly unsure of protocol. Because there was no protocol for this. Ali took it. "They took my title," he said. His voice was even, not working for effect, just even. "They took my license, took 3 years." A short pause. "But they didn't take this." He pressed 2 fingers to the side of his head and held them there for a moment. That was the whole speech. He handed the microphone back, turned to Dominguez and shook his hand again. A real one this time, held a second longer than necessary. Then he climbed out of the ring, walked back up the aisle to Section C, moved past the knees of the people in his row, and sat down in seat 14. He watched the rest of the show. He signed a few things when people came to him afterward. He left when it was time to leave. The appeal took 2 more years. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously in his favor in June 1971. He came back to the ring, lost to Frazier, spent 4 years grinding back toward what they had stripped from him. Foreman, Kinshasa, all of it still ahead of him that March night in Houston. But for the people in the Civic Center, the evening was already complete. They had come to watch El Invicto dismantle a volunteer. What they watched instead was a man who hadn't been permitted inside a boxing ring in almost 2 years walk in off the street in a brown sport coat and show someone with 61 wins, something that 61 wins hadn't managed to teach, and then not finish it, because finishing it was never the point. Dominguez fought for 3 more years and retired with his record officially intact. He gave occasional interviews to regional papers over the years that followed. In one of them, sometime around 1974, a reporter asked him about Houston. He said Muhammad Ali was the only person in 61 challenges who made him feel like the volunteer was doing him a favor by stopping. He said he was done talking about it. He kept his word. Tell us in the comments, when they told you it was over, when they took what you built and said you were finished, did you find another way in, or did you stay in your seat?